On June 6, 1996, a frantic 911 call shattered the quiet of Rolette, Texas, a peaceful suburb where nothing like this had ever happened before. Darlie Routier, a 26-year-old mother of three, sobbed to the dispatcher, her voice trembling with terror, as she claimed an intruder had attacked her and her two young sons, Devon and Damon, while they slept. Her words were panicked, desperate. Her babies were dying, and she pleaded for help, her cries echoing through the night. First responders arrived to a scene of horror. Devon, aged 6, was dead on the living room floor. Damon, just 5, was fatally wounded and clinging to life. Darlie herself had a deep slash across her throat and arm, blood soaking her nightshirt. Her husband, Darren, and their infant son, Drake, who had been sleeping upstairs, were unharmed. Police immediately searched for the intruder Darlie described, a shadowy man in black, seen fleeing through the garage into the darkness. But the story quickly unraveled as investigators began to piece together the evidence. The cut garage screen was undisturbed, showing no signs of forced entry. There were no bloody footprints or trails leading away from the house. Nothing to suggest anyone had escaped. All the bloody prints inside the home belonged to Darlie, raising more questions than answers for detectives. The narrative of a random, violent attack began to crumble under the weight of the evidence. Suspicion shifted to Darlie, the only adult awake during the attack and the only one with unexplained wounds. Her behavior after the murders seemed off, one moment inconsolable, the next oddly composed, as if switching between roles. Police noted her emotional shifts, seeing performance rather than genuine grief, and began to question her story. Sympathy for the grieving mother curdled into doubt as neighbors and friends whispered about what really happened that night. The seeds of suspicion were planted that night, growing into a case that would put Darlie Routier's life, reputation, and motherhood on trial for the world to see. The American dream had become a nightmare, and the Routier home was now the center of a national tragedy. The investigation would soon focus not on a phantom intruder, but on the woman who survived, a mother now cast as the prime suspect. The 911 call, once a desperate plea for help, became a chilling piece of evidence, replayed again and again by investigators and the public alike. Darlie's fate was set in motion on that bloody floor, as the line between victim and suspect blurred forever. To outsiders, Darlie and Darren Routier embodied suburban success. They seemed to have it all. 3 sons, a big house, luxury cars. Their life was the epitome of the American dream. They hosted parties, took vacations, and projected happiness. Friends and neighbors saw a family living in bliss, but behind closed doors their finances were crumbling. The reality was far from the image they projected. Darren's business was failing, debt was mounting, the pressure was becoming unbearable. They'd been denied a loan, and arguments over money grew frequent. The stress was taking a toll on their relationship. Darlie, once proud of her lifestyle, now faced losing it all. The fear of losing their status was overwhelming. She'd recently had breast augmentation, clinging to an image of glamour as their world unraveled. It was a desperate attempt to hold on to a crumbling facade. Prosecutors would later argue that fear of losing status and comfort became a powerful motivator. The stakes were incredibly high. Devon and Damon, the pride of their parents, were now seen by some as a financial burden. The family's financial strain was affecting everyone. Could desperation drive a mother to the unthinkable? The question loomed large. The idea was monstrous, but it became the prosecution's theory. They believed Darlie, facing ruin, made a horrifying choice. Darlie, facing ruin, chose to eliminate her children rather than lose her lifestyle. It was a chilling accusation. The perfect facade was cracking, revealing a family in crisis. The truth was far darker than anyone had imagined. The investigation would soon focus on what lay beneath the surface. The facade was shattered. The American dream was built on shaky ground. The Routier family's story was a stark reminder of how fragile it could be. The Routiers' financial troubles were dire. Credit cards maxed, taxes unpaid, luxury items leased. Darlie, used to comfort, resented the prospect of downsizing. Arguments over money intensified, fueling the prosecution's motive theory. They painted Darlie as materialistic, seeing her children as a financial drain. Life insurance policies on the boys were small, but prosecutors argued desperation, not greed, was the motive. Darlie's recent cosmetic surgery, despite mounting debt, was cited as evidence of misplaced priorities. The prosecution's portrait: a woman clinging to youth and status, threatened by financial collapse. Was she mourning lost freedom or resenting motherhood's constraints? Investigators saw a self-absorbed woman trapped in a failing life. The narrative of vanity and desperation would be central at trial. The dream was collapsing and suspicion was closing in. The evidence at 5801 Eagle Drive told a story that sharply contradicted Darlie's account of that night. Every detail, every trace left behind seemed to challenge her version of events. No blood trail led outside, and investigators found no foreign DNA or fingerprints, only those belonging to the Routier family. The absence of any sign of an intruder was striking. The garage window screen was cut, but from the inside. Dust and cobwebs remained untouched, suggesting no one had actually passed through. Forensic experts discovered cast-off bloodstains on Darlie's nightshirt, a pattern consistent with someone swinging a knife, evidence that raised even more questions about her role. The murder weapon itself was a kitchen knife, taken from the Routier home, not something brought in by a stranger. Blood, found in the kitchen sink and on the counters, suggested that someone had tried to clean up after the attack, attempting to erase the evidence. A bloody towel was discovered, neatly draped over a vacuum cleaner, an odd detail for someone supposedly acting in panic and fear. The living room where the attack occurred lacked the chaos and disorder typical of a violent struggle. Instead, it appeared almost staged, as if someone had tried to create a scene. Darlie's wounds were mostly superficial, classic hesitation marks, not the deep defensive slashes expected from a frenzied attack by an intruder. In stark contrast, her sons suffered fatal, devastating injuries. Compared to theirs, Darlie's cuts seemed almost cosmetic, raising doubts about her story of a desperate struggle. The house itself became the prosecution's star witness, its silent details speaking louder than any testimony. Piece by piece, the evidence pointed not to a mysterious intruder, but to a crime that had been carefully staged from within. The physical story told by the evidence directly contradicted Darlie's every word, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. In the end, the silent testimony of the crime scene was damning, painting a picture of what really happened even when words failed. 8 days after the murders, Darlie was filmed at her son's graves, laughing and spraying silly string. The footage shocked the public. Her behavior seemed bizarre, even callous. Prosecutors seized on the video, arguing it revealed a lack of remorse. Darlie's supporters claimed it was a way to celebrate Devon's life, encouraged by a grief counselor. But the image stuck, a mother smiling at her children's graves. In the hospital, Darlie's emotional displays seemed inconsistent, crying one moment, calm the next. Nurses and police noted her focus on her own injuries, not her son's. Investigators saw her as rehearsed, not grieving. Every strange smile became evidence of guilt. With evidence pointing away from an intruder, police named Darlie the prime suspect. 12 days after the murders, she was arrested for capital murder. The community was stunned, the grieving mother now accused of killing her sons. Detectives dug into the Routier's finances and personal lives, building a case of calculated murder. Darren stood by Darlie, insisting on her innocence, but suspicion lingered. The prosecution's case staged crime scene, self-inflicted wounds, and the silly string video. The defense argued police tunnel vision, claiming Darlie's grief was misunderstood. The battle lines were drawn for a dramatic trial. The question was Darlie a victim or a killer? The stage was set for a legal showdown. In January 1997, Darlie Routier's trial began, moved to Kerrville due to media frenzy. The prosecution presented graphic crime scene photos, the 911 call, and expert testimony. Blood spatter analysis suggested Darlie wielded the knife. Her wounds were deemed self-inflicted. The defense countered with claims of a sloppy investigation and pointed to an unidentified bloody fingerprint. They argued Darlie's behavior was misunderstood trauma, not guilt. Darlie took the stand, weeping for her sons, but struggled under cross-examination. The silly string video was played for the jury, a devastating blow. Her testimony failed to sway opinion. The prosecution's narrative of a cold, calculating mother took hold. The trial became a national spectacle. The jury would soon decide Darlie's fate. The stakes could not have been higher. On February 1st, 1997, the jury found Darlie Routier guilty of capital murder. She collapsed, sobbing, as the verdict was read. 3 days later, she was sentenced to death by lethal injection. The swift verdict showed the jury's certainty. Circumstantial evidence and Darlie's behavior had convinced them. Darlie remains on death row, maintaining her innocence. The case sparked fierce debate. Was she a monster or a victim of injustice? Supporters point to new DNA testing and an unidentified fingerprint as possible proof of innocence. Documentaries, websites and campaigns keep the controversy alive. The Routier family was shattered. Darren eventually divorced Darlie, though he still claims she's innocent. Their surviving son, Drake, grew up in the shadow of tragedy. The case left a trail of broken lives and unanswered questions. The legal chapter closed, but the human tragedy endures. The debate over Darlie's guilt continues to divide. Decades later, Darlie Routier's case remains a true crime enigma. For every piece of evidence against her, supporters offer counter-arguments. New DNA tests could change everything or nothing. The case forces us to confront our assumptions about motherhood, grief and justice. The silly string video became a symbol. Was it proof of guilt or misunderstood mourning? There was no confession, no eyewitness, just a web of circumstantial evidence and behavior. The story leaves room for doubt. Can we ever truly know what happened that night? Is Darlie a narcissistic killer or a wrongfully convicted mother? As DNA results loom, the world still watches and wonders. The case endures as a cautionary tale about justice and perception. The truth of that June night may never be fully known.